good.
Oh
That's
yeah.
good. It's good to hear that something came out of the gate really strong.
Oh, very.
Unlike
Mhm.
lately, the Apple Music is slightly different coming out of the
It,
gate with
it,
something totally new that I am not a fan of. The Apple
it,
Music just
well,
launched spatial
let's
audio.
before we dive into it, be absolutely clear. We understand we do not have Dolby Atmos surround spatial audio headphones. We understand
Correct.
this.
I'm not going to drop
We
$200
understand
on.
that our experience with this is limited to what we have and that could change with the proper equipment. However, if this only sounds good with the proper equipment, then Apple shouldn't let you force that feature on for non Atmos headphones and earbuds.
Correct. And for reference, I'm using these are Shure SE 425s that I've used for years and years. They're basically one of the better in ears you can buy, and I've listened to some of that with through my phone through the little dongle you have because these are hardwired through there.
Mhm.
And I was not impressed. Granted, again, it's not built with a little chip in it for the Atmos, I guess, like what they're doing now with a lot of the Power Beats and the Beats Pros audio. But these are basically like pro level in ears that people use
Right.
that are basically that's why I enjoy these. I enjoy them because they're flat. They give you that very full sound. They're not very bass heavy. They're not very anything heavy. They're designed to be flat EQ'd. And it's designed to give you that full kind of they're dual drivers headphones. So they're not something they're not $20 skull candies. So for reference, that's what I've used to listen to it. I have a sound bar in my office. I've used a little hang on, one of these things. One of these guys too. So Ultimate Ears Mega Boom. So I've listened to it on multiple different sources. So it's not just one of I don't like it on these headphones, so I'm not
Right.
going to use it. I mean, I even have my little Jabra headphones that are my other in-ears that I use for wirelessly. So 4 different sources technically I've used it. And all 4 sources I have listened to the spatial audio that Apple has done and gone, what the hell is this? I
Yeah.
have not been impressed at all. And I don't know why. Like, again, maybe it's because we don't have the right headphones for it, but I'm not going to drop $200 for
Right.
something that it seems gimmicky. It's like a 3D TV.
Well, exactly. And I mean, like they don't even go into like, okay, are you getting access to the master recordings to actually pull this off, or is this just a lot of, you know, pans and zooms and things that you're doing to kind of make this kind of faux spatial sound? Because I haven't heard anything that they're actually getting master recordings to do this. They aren't even really
Yeah.
going into how they're doing it.
No. Like there's bands out there that are going to let Apple use
Mhm.
their musical stems, and for everyone that knows, stems are basically the recorded tracks. So just the bass, or just the drums, or just the vocals, or just the backing tracks. That's what stems are. I don't know if Apple has the stems to them, but then you also have people that have to go in and remix the whole album. They have to go back in and
Oh
redo
yeah.
it. So what you're going to hear is not the same album that was released. If they go in and spatial, they pan the bass farther left, or they pan the drums more center, or they pan the drums around, like the toms around the person that's listening. Like a good album that's mixed will have that kind of effect. You have your toms that'll go ding, 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 ding as you go around. Cymbals are being kind of intermixed. Snare is going to be dead center. Bass usually will be stage left, guitar stage right, and vocals will be dead center. That's usually how a standard mix is. And then anything else is ancillary, backing tracks. It's kind of both ears, so you hear it across the board. But like how they're doing this, I'm not going to say it's like musical wizardry or musical like magic, but like the first one that I heard was Fall Out Boy, Sugar We're Going Down. Know that song inside and out. One of my wife's favorite songs. I've heard it a billion times. I could tell you anything that's wrong if they changed it. And the whole thing, it sounds like someone's taking the recording and just going like this back and forth with a microphone just for the vocals, and back and forth, and here we go, and the whole time. It's terrible. Like I don't understand why they changed it or what they did with it. Like, and that's just for one of the first songs I heard, and everything else I heard after that. And I gave it benefit of the doubt on all my different sources, going, oh, okay, maybe it's just these. Maybe it's just these. It doesn't make any sense. It's just panning and zooming or volume, or I don't know how they're doing it. And it's just like what they're piping is the new way to listen to music is like this sucks. Why are you doing this?
Well, exactly. And there, like, my experience varied a little differently. Some songs, even with the equipment that we have, to me sounded good. You could hear a difference, but it wasn't, anything that, ruined it, but I could at least kind of hear the potential. Um, the Marvin Gaye track that's on there is what's going
Yeah.
on. Like that one, I could hear some potential. Um, two of the Beatles albums that recently got remixed, Abbey Road and Sgt. Pepper's, were on there. And the thing is that with those albums, they already got this very spatial stereo mix
Yeah.
when they remixed those at the time. And so you really couldn't hear a whole lot of difference on
Yeah. And
those.
those sounded really good on the initial remix too. So them going in and retouching it, it's like,
Yeah. And
why?
like I
There's
said,
no
it's one of
need
those things
to.
where it's like, well, listening to them on my earbuds, even with, this Dolby feature turned on, it was like, okay, I mean, it doesn't sound any different from what I heard before. Maybe there's a difference if I have, it kicked up into a spatial audio surround sound kind of setup. And then there were certain tracks that were absolutely just murdered where I'm like, okay, the only reason I'm curious to hear it on proper equipment is to hear, is it really this bad on that too? The
Yeah,
worst
exactly.
being Buddy Holly.
Oh God, yeah, that one absolutely
It
murdered it.
drops the music at one point.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, like, hold up. And I turned it off and then listened to it again just to, like, okay, is there a breakdown or something that I forgot in this song? And it's like,
Nope.
no, just at some point they do some weird pan. And the only thing I can guess is they're trying to, like, and that's why, like, because I don't fully grasp, because everything I've seen of spatial audio with, like, earbuds has been more like spatial. You turn this way, you turn that way, and it's like the music is staying here, but
Yeah, exactly.
it's mimicking, like, you're turning your head like this, not necessarily what you think of as like a movie theater and Dolby Atmos where the sound goes boo, directional,
Yeah.
to mimic, if something is passing to your from behind you all the way on the left, it's going to sound off those three speakers. If it's on the right, it's going to sound on those three speakers. If it's just directly overhead, it's going to hit all six and go front to back. Um, so yeah, but that's the only thing I can think of, is that they either panned it to the front or the back in some kind of weird surround sound pan to try and make it maybe sound like it's going around you. But
Yeah.
why would you
I
do that
couldn't
with the
tell.
music?
Right. And also too, like in the demo they talk about, oh well, this is how music was recorded. Like, like Buddy Holly, that was more mono, maybe 2-track stereo, maybe back in for that time frame. And then as they obviously progress, you get more tracks. So well, obviously to everyone who's
Well, I
listening,
mean,
16 tracks means there's 16 different tracks of music you can have. Most modern music, I believe, uses anywhere from 80 to
well,
110
yeah, I
tracks per
can't
song,
imagine that
depending on what
that
they need.
Weezer Buddy Holly used that many tracks.
Yeah, no,
Maybe 8 at
yeah,
most.
yeah. It doesn't sound, and that was because that
And
was
a
that
lot
was
of that
old
was for
stuff. That was
probably backing and harmony.
yeah, exactly like there was probably that they probably did like this is how like back in my high school days we had for recording drums. I recorded all of my tracks to an 8-track recorder, and then they bounced those 8 tracks into 1 track. So we had to get the
Mhm.
levels right, and then that the drums became 1 track, and that's where it was. And then guitars 1 track, 2 track, they double track it on a
Right.
single track. Which as you do that, you lose some quality, which is part of what it is. So if they're trying to go in and like basically pull out those tracks individually and maybe make some sense of that, maybe, but
I
I
don't
don't know
know.
of any
Well,
software.
and
Like
and
none of
really,
my musical brain is going, how are they
if they're
pulling this out to do
well,
this?
and that's the thing. Like, I could get doing that on, like, if you're gonna do that with, like, say, Pink Floyd. Okay,
Yeah,
doing weird pan things where it's circling around you.
that
That
fits
that
the
makes
bill for them.
sense. That makes sense. it's the kind of they work more in soundscapes. Yes, it is very, especially once you get past Dark Side of the Moon, a lot of it's very traditional song structure on a lot of the songs.
Yeah.
But, they deal with so many soundscapes and, depth and lushness to it.
Hmm.
Makes sense. Later Beatles albums from, kind of Revolver forward.
Yeah, they got experimental,
Makes
which is
sense.
fine. That's what they did.
Um, Weezer?
But like,
Mm, mm-mm.
no, it doesn't. Why? You
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
need it.
Rush, yes.
I get that. Rush, like 80s on Rush, like obviously earlier
Oh,
Rush was pretty much straightforward what they did, what they did. But later on Rush, like the 80s especially, it was like, yeah, go crazy with it, have fun. They were going crazy with it, so have fun with it. It's just a matter of like, how did they get this info?
yeah.
How did they get it? Are they just taking, who did they buy off to get access to this kind of info? Is this,
Well,
or is it
who
just kind of
knows?
there?
And who
So
knows if
I,
they are, because there's certain tracks where the track isn't even on the album. Like,
yeah,
I was going through the rock playlist and Silent Lucidity is on there, but it's not off of Empire. It's on some weird rock compilation.
I know that song is on like a couple soundtracks too, if I remember right. So it's kind of just
Yeah, and it's like, I know you didn't get a master recording off of that.
right.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Like I'm looking at some of the lists now. Like they just had like Billie Eilish's for spatial audio, her
Well, her
happier
whole
than
album.
ever.
Yeah.
That makes sense
Right, it's the
because
whole album.
that's new. It's digital. Yeah, it's all stuff on there. But like they've got the Beethoven complete with the symphony. That makes sense. They've got stuff like that on there. But then you go farther back, and you're just like,
Well,
how
but
are you
my
getting this
thing is the
stuff?
compilations, because the people who made that compilation did not have access to a master recording. Period.
No,
They do
no,
not get
without a doubt.
access to that. When Power Ballads licenses Queensryche Silent Lucidity, they are not. Jeff Tate isn't walking over to their place with his master recordings and going, "Yeah, here you go."
Here you go. Because Jeff Tate's not that kind of guy unless
Well,
Jeff Tate makes a lot of money off of it.
nobody is that kind of guy. Even the most
Exactly.
generous uh, person, or even the most anal retentive, this must sound perfect, like, somebody like,
I
say,
know a few of them.
even somebody like, I say, a Frank Zappa
Yeah.
would not his master recordings over to some schmuck putting together, K-Tel's novelty hits, who wanted to put "Don't Eat the Yellow Snow" on there. He'd be like, "Well, here you go. This is the best you get."
Exactly.
like, because he ain't gonna let anybody touch them master recordings for nothing.
No.
No.
And the only time anyone ever get master recordings that the artist has no say in is when the label owns it and goes, "We don't care. We own your music. We can do this. And
Yeah.
if you want to complain, here's the amount you got to buy out your contract. You signed right here."
Yeah.
So
I've yet to hear exactly how they're doing it.
yeah,
And none
and
of the
I
stuff that I've seen, I mean, and maybe I didn't dig deep enough, but nothing that I've seen has shown me that anybody is giving them access to master recordings. So this is a
yeah
lot
no.
of weird studio panning and zooming trickery that they're doing with existing songs.
My only guess, and this is pure guess. So anyone watching this, listening to this, this is total speculation. So there's programs out there now that you can download that you can spend money on. There's some that are free where you can go in and you can basically quote unquote drop out that instrument. Like there's a new one that came out for drummers in mind where you can drop out the drums, you can drop out the vocals, drop out the bass,
Right.
whatever you want to drop out, add in a tempo or your BPMs to it and your metronome. You can do that. My guess is they're using something similar to this where they drop out individual tracks or drop out everything else but vocals, drop out everything but bass. So it singles it out, and then they take those basically as like MP3s or whatever they're
Mm-hmm.
using for stems, and then they go in and they play with the levels as they're doing it, kind of almost like a performance, if you will. Like, okay, this is where it comes. Okay, this part's coming in. We're going to assume that the guitar player steps forward in the room to record this part, almost like a concert, but like more where the levels are indicative of where they are on the stage versus just standing in front of an amplifier kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
So
these
kind of
don't.
like that. That's my only guess at how they're doing it because that's
Yeah, and there may
I
be
don't know
some,
how they're
and
doing it.
I'm not saying that there aren't certain artists that, have participated fully and given them these, Atmos,
Yeah.
tracks, but
But you've
I
got like I'm looking at the list now. You've got Leonard Skinner on there with Simple Man. You've got Santeria Sublime. You've got Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers with Wall Number Three. You've got the Rolling Stones with Angie. You've got Riders of the Storm by the Doors. You've got
and
Bryan
the
Adams. You've
Stones
got Pearl
ain't
Jam. Like it's
the Stones ain't giving master recordings to nobody.
no, God no, they're not touching. They're not doing that at all.
Not
You know,
not for 7-8 figures an album.
no, exactly.
The
It's not
Stones are notoriously stingy.
exactly. But then you've got other ones where I can see it, like where you've got Youngblood with Machine Gun Kelly. That makes sense. You've got other ones on there. Let's me keep
Oh
going down
yeah,
the list. You got
I'm
Fountains of
sure
Wayne with Stacey's
like
mom,
say
of
The
course.
Weeknd or Billie Eilish or a lot of newer artists probably were more than happy to hand their stuff over to Apple and be like, here you go.
Yeah,
You
or
know,
maybe it's in their contract that hey, part of what you're doing is going to Apple
right,
because we have a distribution deal.
right.
That could be part of it too. But yeah, but like other ones, like I know another one that they're looking at the list now too, like that I listened to and it was unlistenable was "Smooth Criminal" by Alien Ant Farm.
Oh yeah, that was a good
Unlistenable.
one.
It sounded like absolute dog shit. It just made like, what are you
I
doing to
just
this
don't.
song? What
Here's
did you
my
do?
thing is I just don't understand the point. Like,
I don't either.
and
It's a
I'm big
gimmick.
on, and you know me, like as if a
Yeah,
band releases like a remix or a remaster, I am first one to go check it out because I want to hear if there's any differences, or if this is just the same album released a third or fourth or fifth time.
right.
That's
Is this
why
album getting Skyrimmed or is it getting actually redone?
yeah, like that's why I sung the praises so high of like the the Scumdogs of the Universe 30th anniversary remix that Guar
Which
did.
sounded amazing.
Amazing.
Oh,
Um,
so well done.
the Beatles remixes have, for Abbey Road and the White Album and Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Um,
They were almost like benchmarks of how you remaster
the Kinks,
albums in modern
Lola
age.
versus Power Man, The Money Go Round, had some great remixes, especially, Power Man, the actual song
Yeah.
Power Man.
Yeah, exactly.
Great stuff, but then, you have your stuff like the Metallica remasters, which have all been pretty lazy.
Yeah.
Like
It's just
in some of them, the bass is kicked up a little bit more, especially on the Cliff Burton albums, but they had a perfect opportunity to kick up Newstead's bass and Justice, even if you wanted that as like a bonus. Like, here's the mix as we released it, and here's the mix with Jason Newsted's bass. And no, and they're good for, a total package with, the extras and B-sides and demos and, full live concerts and all that. Yeah, they're a nice package. But the album mixes themselves are pretty much carbon copy. I'm not really hearing any difference. Like, they just released the new mix or remaster of Enter Sandman for the Black Album, crazy special edition they're doing, and I didn't really hear any difference. And
no.
I'm so used to that now, where these bands put out these remasters, and I'm just like, you guys did nothing. Like, at least with the Zappa
you just
ones.
wiped off the dust is all they did, really. Like half the stuff. It's just like
Yeah, I mean, at
you've
least
done nothing on this.
At least with the Zappa ones, you got a couple more of the original mixes. You Are What You Is had the original vinyl mix. Chic Your Booty had the original vinyl mix. Hot Rats had the original. So you had a lot more of the original mixes and the original masters, as opposed to the ones Frank did in like the late 80s when CDs came out. So you at least had that, a lot of the newer albums, yeah, they sounded the same. But you at least had some that had that original mix from the analog, as opposed to all the digital stuff he did in the 80s. So that was nice. There's still some where it's still the newer mix, which is sad. But, still, for the most part, it just kind of sounded the same. There's a little more bass, a little more pop to some of the drums, so they weren't a total waste. But then there's some mixes or remasters where they're just like, there's nothing different. Like, like I said, the Metallica ones, I think the Led Zeppelin ones, I never really heard much difference in any of the Led Zeppelin ones. there's just too many of those where it's just like, come on, guys.
Exactly.
You want, and you wonder
It's
why people
half-assed.
would rather stream than buy your albums individually, because you keep releasing these things and it's the new remastered edition. Oh my gosh. It's like
Right.
listening to a whole new album, and then you listen to it and you're like, there's no difference.
Nope.
Like,
It's like
either
Rolling Stones
remix
going on the
either
farewell
either
tour for the ninth
completely
time.
start over and remix it, or don't bother. Like,
Right.
unless you're gonna
Like,
go in and play with the mix, don't bother.
or go ballsy like August Burns Ren did and re-record the whole damn album, like when they redid Divisions that they just put out just
I
recently.
get
They
real
redid the whole thing.
I get real dodgy about re-recordings. Those are touch and go.
See,
Those are
they did really well.
touch and go.
Oh yeah, no. So like, I appreciated what they did because when they wrote it, obviously it's their touring band. They were younger. They just had it in. Now they've had 10 years of playing these albums
Yeah.
or playing this album, and they brought in some guest musicians on it as well. And they listening to, obviously the original has a special place in my heart and in my
Right.
memory of everything because it was balls out one of the craziest drums albums I'd heard at that point in time. And now I know what to expect. Nothing too crazy. It's just technology has gone 10 years farther in the future. And just they're
Right.
more comfortable with the parts. It's not like, hey, we just learned this. We have to play it to a click track and get it out. Now it's like, oh, I can play this in my sleep, and they just hammer it out. Like you can feel the comfort on the parts, if that makes any sense. Like when you see a band towards the end of it.
No, it makes sense. I mean,
start.
I would love to hear Guar re-record "Hello."
Oh God,
but there's a
yes.
certain charm to it. Sounded like a basement.
Exactly, and that's
It's kind of like
that's the pros and cons of re-recording stuff too. Is you're going to have the people who are like, I love the new sound, and people who go that they shouldn't have touched it. And then you have the people who in between go,
I feel
they both
the same.
sound good.
Well, it's like the same thing with the first two Ween albums.
Oh,
like I'd love, like, there's part of me that would love to hear them re-record them in a full studio with the lineup that they've had for probably since at least Chocolate and Cheese.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's that charm to those just kind of just only Dean, only Gene, and a boombox.
Right, and it did the trick. Yeah, I would love to hear like Lamb of God, New American Gospel, re-recorded modern stuff, because that original recording, what gave it its charm and what gave it everyone's like, oh shit, was the fact that it sounded dirty. It sounded like it was recorded in a weekend. It sounded like it was just straight, hey, we're a metal band. We scraped up $1,000 and this is what we're put together. Well, let's put it out there. So it's kind of one of those numbers, but it's it's all coulda, woulda, shoulda with this stuff. And obviously with the audio going the way it is now, we can hope maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know.
Yeah,
if Apple keeps going crazy, I don't know if I'm gonna like it.
Yeah, I mean, I just my whole thing is if to kind of wrap up on the Apple thing, if you aren't going to make it listenable on all audio devices, then don't let people turn that feature on.
Yeah,
you're shooting yourself in the foot. Especially when you're releasing something that is essentially, I mean, even lossless, which I mean, is negligible, unless you're listening on studio level equipment. Like they made a big deal about lossless audio, and it's just like I guess it sounds better than high level MP3.
I hardly notice it with these, and these are $300 in-ears. So
yeah,
it's not
I
like
mean, you're really
night and day. It's
going after a niche audience that honestly is probably listening to their stuff on pristine original vinyl for classic rock, or the level of stuff that they're listening to file wise. Like, you're not going to be able to woo those people by going, look, spatial audio, gimmick.
Yeah. For the people who are walking on the street with their phone like this, just listening like this,
right?
They're not going to care.
No.
Or the backpackers who have these things in their backpack behind their head and they're just walking around like this.
They
don't care.
Let it be a gimmick for people who bought $250 earbuds. Don't try and make it this big thing. Not everything has to be a big